Gaming. Welcome back to another episode of Marvel Future Revolution. Today we got a special video that I wanted to produce for you guys because our boy Bizzy, who is part of the line X-Force on Omega Flight, was one of the players that was listed for the best survey response recipients. And even better that he was listed in there is that he is actually a Doctor Strange player. That gives even more weighted value to the fact that he's going to be listened to, because like I said in one of my previous videos, one of the things I was really worried about with the survey is that who's actually reading through the majority of these interviews. So that we have a Doctor Strange who is actually going to list a bunch of things specific to Doctor Strange. I felt that was great. So welcome, Bizzy. Let's jump into this discussion about some of the things that you basically wrote down. Thank you for providing me your suggestions. So let's start out with your first one that you had here. You talked about the Crimson Bands of Sidorak. I'll let you talk about that and say what you want, and I'll give you a response to that, right?
All right, cool. So, I just, since they started off with skills, I just went through, I literally just opened up the game and started looking through the skills. And it's not that I didn't know the skills, it's just that I really wanted to give some thought into why I don't use it, which a lot of his skills is just not used. So with that skill, it's like I see a lot of potential with that skill. The problem is the status effect that don't work unless something else happens, which is the guard break. That is the most important part of getting snare to work, and that skill just doesn't work. That's the best part of it. Okay, it doesn't do a lot of damage. That's one of those factors that reason why you don't want to use it. But then it's the snare part is like, oh, that could be good, but you can't snare anybody unless you guard break. And Doctor Strange is too slow to land enough skills to guard break, and his skills aren't high guard break. So that was the drawback in that skill.
What did you feel about that when they did that update? They had the guard break that they were like, hey, we're going to increase the guard break on these specific illusion magic class skills. I felt like that was too late in terms of the character, because even if I was going to utilize the illusion magic class skills, some of the ones that they went to increase were skills that we weren't using as Doctor Strange's in the first place. Does that go along with what you was?
Yeah, so when they said that, that was that first that was the balance patch, right?
Yep.
So that balance patch your take on it was common in minds. That made me want to rage, because they got me excited that there's a balance patch, and what they did with Doctor Strange was laughable. It literally made me rage, because they raised it from lowest to low, and I was like, what the? And meanwhile, a month before, they released Magic, who had, I don't know how many skills. Most of her skills is either medium or high or highest. And it's like, how do y'all think that this is gonna help guard break anybody from lowest to low? That doesn't make any sense. It literally made me rage when I read that.
Mm-hmm. So then we had so I remember at one point when Circular Shackles was actually good PvE skill. When the game first came out, Doctor Strange was really considered a PvP dynamo because of Circular Shackles. It had a pretty wide radius, and it has actually pretty good damage. His ultimate skill has some pretty good radius and pretty good damage. So you basically said they nerfed it since the soft launch, so I'm assuming you're agreeing that it needs to, at the very minimum, be restored. Is this a skill that you like? I don't feel like this is a skill that has an animation defect. I feel like what they took away from this skill essentially made Doctor Strange bad.
Right, yeah. It had a ridiculous range. And if you think about Doctor Strange, and we watched the Marvel movies, and what's basically got this game going and many other Marvel IP games going is what's going on with the Marvel movies and the Marvel shows and stuff like that. And you think about Doctor Strange and what he can do. So they said, the range was too big. He was taking up a massive area. But that's Doctor Strange. That's the master. That's him. So that skill not only in PvE, but I could see some value in it, even using it in Omega War, going into the middle and just being, and surprisingly enough, that actually moves characters together. It actually works on players at times as well. So that I see even a little bit of value in that in PvP. It should at least at bare minimum be restored to what it was.
Okay, I agree with you on that one. So now we got a skill that we're talking about that, like, I can tell you, I probably never touch is Barrier Curse. You basically say here that it's got great range, but the snare is useless once again. And I agree with you on that. I don't know why they have this big center around Doctor Strange's guard break, because that's not essentially what he's doing in order to hold those skills. He didn't need to break Thanos' guard when he used it. We see Sidorak as obviously a prominent featured creation of his, or entity that he draws power from, even with the Multiverse of Madness trailer. So, like, you want to talk about this Barrier Curse?
Yeah, so shout out to Claire. I think a lot of the community knows her. She's a Storm. I think I'm not sure where she's at, maybe Europe or something like that. But so I used this skill for a lot of testing. She had suggested that you could spam this skill with certain specs. This is before they nerfed the cooldown on the illusion magic skill that reduces cooldown. She's basically saying that you could just spam this and get like guard break and snare or whatever. And so I was testing it then. The problem was I couldn't land it. He does up gang signs with his hands, and people know it's coming. And great range, but people can see it coming from a mile away. They're gonna dodge. They're gonna attack into it because they know that I'm locked into the animation. I could dodge out of it, but then it's just wasting the skill. So it's that's basically why it's useless. It takes too long to cast,
I agree.
Which is like a reoccurring theme throughout all of his skills.
Yeah. So, like, you talked about that. So this is the one thing I was looking at your list here, and it's like, they all have slow animations as well. 7 Rings of Ragador, and I was like kind of surprised that you said that, because I was like, 7 Rings of Ragador to me feels like one of his fastest skills. Like, like that's, to me, it's a skill that doesn't seem like it really has a animation time on it. But you still feel that one has a really slow animation as well?
So there's a few tells, which is kind of like, and before we started recording, I was just telling you how I haven't upgraded Doctor Strange and since November, and before I stopped upgrading Doctor Strange, it was like a few, very select few of Doctor Strange's I would instantly lose to. Now I lose to all of them, but it's because of the tells of that particular skill that everyone uses. So if you're too close to someone, he has to teleport to make space.
Yep.
Right? So that doesn't help because it's not an iframe teleport. He can still be hit. So if I'm close to you and I want to just quickly deploy this shit, nope, he has to teleport to make space. So that's a tell. The other tell is his hand going back. Early on, even before in like October, this game is really new still. One of our alliance mates, I used to run spec ops with him, would just say, he was a Black Widow, and he would say it all the time, like, yo, just watch his hand. And Black Widows is the perfect counter to it. They watch our hand and they throw blind right in our face. And once the blind lands, we're hitting for nothing with 7 Rings of Ragdoll. So even that animation is just too predictable, too clunky, too slow. And again, there's no movement. Well, the movement on it doesn't help deploy it any faster. It actually gives it away that is coming.
I don't disagree with you on that. So then you've basically got Star of Shackles and Chain of Reaction, and then we've got like Ring of Repulsion. These are all, like, Magic Explosion too. These are all skills that pretty much are in the same window. I mean, like, I would be honest with you, Magic Explosion seems like a training ground skill to me, so I don't ever really equip it outside of using it. And to be honest with you, I don't even feel like it's a really effective skill even inside of training grounds. But Ring of Repulsion, Star Shackles, and Training Reactions. Let's talk about those, what you have here. I mean, like you mentioned already, like his hand movement and the major tails that he has.
Yeah.
You want to speak on these? Let's get into those real quick. I
Ring,
mean,
ring
even though I feel like these are
repulsive.
dead skills.
I mean, yeah, they're basically dead skills because they just don't do any damage, and they're going up against ring and repulsive potions. So, right, so you have one that's doing like what's the, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think it's about 1,000, 1,500% damage. These are doing 400 damage. Do they have any status effect to anything that they're doing? Are they like slowing the character? Are they reducing accuracy? Are they doing anything to make up for the damage? Not at all. They're jumping from character to character. But if you're doing 400% damage, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing to a player coming at you? 400% damage, you're not doing anything. So they're, as you said, dead stats, not worth wasting time on. We can move on.
Yeah, it's weird because like it's to be honest with you, that's a lot of Doctor Strange skills for me. I feel that way. Like nobody's gonna change my mind on it. I know there's been some players be like, yeah, we can use certain skills for this. If a skill's that specialized, then I feel like it's not worth it, the investment. I don't know, and I've played MMOs for years. I don't know any MMO where players are invested in that specialized skill, especially when you have multiple modes. So
Yeah,
next up we
magic.
got
I mean,
yeah,
real quick, just magic explosion is another one of those things. Like the snare skills is
mhm,
like knockback would be great. Like that will knock back mobs, but it won't knock back a supervillain. It won't knock
right.
back a player unless they're guard broken. And again, how do you guard?
Especially when
And
most
maybe
of
move that guard break issue. Like guard break in this game, and this is getting a little bit off topic. Guard break should just be for guard break. It shouldn't affect whether a status effect lands or not. If they should separate the two. Like
no,
if it's a status effect, it should land regardless.
yeah, I don't disagree with you. Like when ultimately when you look at certain games, like, and I always make this comparison to people, and whether or not players are playing that game or not, but you look at Marvel Future Fight, for instance, and you say guard break is meant to protect me from certain amount of hits, but it's not necessarily meant to stop me from receiving status effect ailments or debuffs and stuff like that. If Storm cast a lightning around me, I'm still going to be subjected to those lightnings, especially if those lightnings ignore guard break, which is what they should be doing. Because if you looked at like Captain America's Sentinel of Liberty, he summons the shield for everybody, which kind of increases their guard break. My status effect of being able to knock you back even though you have that shield up doesn't change. My ability to hit you with lightning damage doesn't change. It might change like some physical modifiers or something that go through, but it's not changing any of those things. So it's weird to see in this game, like you said, that they have guard break up and you like, yeah, well, guard break stops everything. And now I've got to get through your guard break to even cast debuffs on you. Like,
We're opening a can of worms going down this line because if they remove that, then GG because Storm is gonna be ruling all.
yeah, she would rule all. I mean, yeah, I get it that, but for me, like rolling down part of our conversation before we started, this is where I get into that conversation again, where I feel like we've got the junior devs playing at the table, because I'm like, these are things that should have been thought out in the beginning. They should have been things that you looked at because they were already implemented in other games and they were done with far more success and far more understanding than what they seem to be have implemented in there. Like essentially, like me and you were before the stream, we were talking about the nerfs and things like that went down with characters. And you literally look at those adjustments that they made for characters, and they tried to present them off as if though they were buffs, but they were nerfs. And this pissed off a large portion of the community to say, why were these nerfs done to my characters, especially characters that I heavily invested in? Why are we looking at stats and trying to realign what stats are important to us on characters that we've invested so much in? Especially from a Doctor Strange player perspective, I'll say this. When we looked at characters like Iron Man, you looked at characters like Storm, you looked at characters like Spider-Man, investing in stats in those characters is far easier than it is to invest in, stats with a character like Doctor Strange. You pretty much get limited on your Omega cards, you get limited on your uniforms, you get limited on every aspect of stats that are available to Doctor Strange for him to be good. You don't hit crit rate, you don't hit dodge rate. None of these things are hit as a character for him, and they just recently added accuracy rate inside of our potential tree. without having those things, you essentially look at a character and go, what did you do to nerf this character? And then you see how it sets aside. But like you said, we can go down that rabbit hole. I don't mind going
Yeah.
down that rabbit hole. But, you know, it ease what it ease, I guess.
Yeah, the video would be too long if we go
Yeah.
down there.
So then we've got so gateway summons and gateway edge. I feel like those skills are definitely have gateway launch, that whole gateway summons. I think those have a lot more intrigue in them in terms of usability than what they would have originally had, basically because of Rome 1's build that he had, where he was showing gateway of edge being used as a great potential PvP skill. Let's just jump into those and talk about what you've got written down here.
Gateway summons, it's just not enough damage. I mean, there's not much to say about that. They need to rework the skill. I don't have any ideas for it, but it's just, I mean, it doesn't do any damage. What are we using this for? Gateway launch, again, you know, the stamina cost and the cooldowns are, it's a high cost. It's a high cost with the way the character is built, and I know we're going to get to specializations later. It could be less if they improve some of the specializations, and so the cooldown wouldn't be so high. But as it stands right now, and this is for a universal, this is not, you know, I talked from a standpoint of not being a spender. Like, I know free to play Magics Doctor Strangers who message me all the time and ask me what to do, you know. So I'm just talking in general. It's a high cooldown. I can get it. I myself can get the cooldown lower, but that's just my personal experience. For entire Doctor Strange community, it's too high of a cooldown.
100% agree.
And then the animation. Oh, that's another one. How many circles he got to make before the attack actually starts coming out? It's like, you know, everybody, you know, us in X Force will start, you know, making jokes on Doctor Strange. I remember Rob saying, you know, he laughs when he sees it coming
Because it's like the wind up pitch from a mile away.
Like, why would you use this? It's like, why would you use the skill? It's too long of an animation.
I realized how bad. I think I realized how bad gateway launch was. Like, even though I still keep it in my rotation as my primary, you know, for just moseying around and for, like, you know, raids and stuff like that, I realized how bad of a skill it was when we started playing. What was the invasion for the Eternals? Kroos, the Kroos invasion that we had for the Eternals. That's when I realized how bad gateway launch was. Like, I mean, you notice how bad it was definitely during the Thanos Ares, you know, invasion, but even more during Kroos, because he would enter in so many of those those animations where he could one-shot kill you if you were still in place inside those areas, and you'd be summoning gateway launch and your character's just stuck there. Like, it's not moving. You can't move out of it. You can't cancel out of it. And you're just stuck there winding your goddamn hands up. And I'm like, okay, I got to wait for this whole damn skill to play. I don't know how many times I died inside the Kroos invasion using gateway launch, specifically because it locked me in place and there was no way to cancel out of that skill. And if you cancel out of the skill, you lose all the damage on the skill as well.
And then wait the long cooldown. Something I didn't mention here, but you know, I mentioned in other skills would have been like, instead of Doctor Strange casting it, of course he's the master of mystic. Why don't he and other characters do this? Summons. If he could summon a clone of himself to launch the skill and he can still move, that would be great.
So you want his ass to go Naruto. he needs to summon that shit to get his Rasengan to go out.
Yeah, like, I mean, this is another one of the skills that is a problem in the sense that he's locked in an animation. He standing still. He's an easy target. Great damage. But how long do you have to actually cast it? I still use it. It's just one of those high risk, high reward type of situations. You're going to use it in circumstances where you know somebody can't dodge out of it, or you want them to burn all of their dodges, you know, trying to get away from it.
that goes into something when I originally tried to show, like this was back in October. I did a video trying to, mix match skills and try to figure out builds. And I was using, I think it was the Illusions of Icon skill. That had like a 47-second cooldown where it summons, Doctor Strange summons a bunch of illusions. They last maybe like 5 to 7 seconds. That's it. And I was trying to see if that skill, when you summon it, if it would give you time to basically summon another skill, because it would redirect targeting for the characters. But that in lied the problem again when I made the point about Marvel Future Fight. We often see characters who have summons abilities inside the game and they're useless, because it takes into account, like, the idea sounds cool on paper that, I'm going to have these illusions that I'm going to summon, but it doesn't take into account the fact that I'm the player. I can see the illusions. I know who summoned the illusions. I know where it started, so I know exactly the character that I'm supposed to be attacking, and I can still target that character and make a difference. So it's interesting.
Well, I mean, to see, that's the thing, and the frustrating part when they release Magic. It's like, oh, you know how to make a character. You just drop the ball on these characters, because Magic has summons who actually you summon them and they like sprint over to your enemy and will jump in between you and them. So even if the player knows who you are, it's hard for them to get around the summon who's constantly in their face.
That's because her summons are pets. But her summons are pets. It's a little bit different. Like, it's like
our problem is our summons don't follow us.
Yeah, our summons is not contributing anything to make it so that you have to attack that summons in order to get through it. Like, there's a character inside Marvel Future Fight that they made exclusive, like Danny Koo, made exclusively for Marvel Future Fight, and those characters essentially became part of Agents of Atlas in the comic book series and became canon. And she was called Crescent, and it's Crescent and Io, and Io is her summons, and it's just a big spiritual bear. And when she summons that character, you have to deal with the bear. It's another entity on the board that you have to deal with the same way you have to deal with her. Whereas our summons that they have in this game is just a summons. It's just there. It's not, potentially doing anything to you that's harmful. So it's, yeah. But like you said, going into another direction there, because the summons in here is one of those things that pisses me off the most, because Illusions of Icon was one of his most, it takes a while to power up for that skill inside, and when he uses it in the comic books or when he uses it in MCU. But it's one of his more identifiable skills overall, I think, for new players and new comic book readers alike. And they just fucked it up. Like, I was like, what the hell happened here?
Right. But so Gateway Edge, I mean, I've watched Rome 1. I think that was Rome 1, or maybe it was somebody else. I'm not sure. And they buffed this one with that last balance patch, and I think it's on par PvE wise with Gateway Summons now. It takes a little bit less stamina and a little bit less cooldown. It does a little bit less damage, but if you can get it up faster, then DPS wise, it might calculate. I haven't done the math. I'm not a math guy, so I'm not gonna sit there and calculate that. But it seems as though DPS wise, it'll be close to Gateway Summons if you can get it up faster than Gateway Summons can, especially since they buffed the damage. But PvP wise, I tried it after they did the buff to it. It's still avoidable. It's too small. If they make it like make it like Circular Shackles previous, and it takes up half the board, maybe. But still, I mean, it's dodgeable. You're just placing it in one spot. I think the final product, I didn't put it here, but I think the final product, it took me a few days to put together that survey. I think I went back and said that if it followed one of his skills, I suggested that if it followed like Storm's cloud followed you, then it would be better suited. Like if I could launch it and it just follow you and keep attacking you for a set amount of time, then it would be a better skill. Gotcha. I'm not sure if I suggested that with this skill or another skill.
Gotcha. So going over Mirror Dimension, I was surprised to see you like, don't even waste your time with it. It's a terrible skill, should be replaced immediately. Now, I actually liked Mirror Dimension. Dimension Lockdown. at least in PvE for like grinding. I don't think that is worthwhile inside PvP. I don't think it's worthwhile inside any of the other, you know, PvE content other than just probably like training grounds. But you just automatically said that's a terrible skill. So I would like to know what your difference is on that one compared to why I like, you know, like I said, I like to use it for grinding.
Right. Yeah. So some people use it and they use it to keep that max damage rate constantly going.
Mhm.
So they'll land it on, but again, it's contingent on if your character, I mean, if the enemy or whoever you cast it on stays still, right?
Yeah.
I think this is one of the ones that I mentioned as well. If it followed you around like Storm's build does, but that's the reason why. It's like anything that's stationary, um, it's stupid.
Yeah.
But then the other thing is that it doesn't do a lot of damage. So it not only is it stationary, it doesn't do a lot of damage. So again, this game is just all based on DPS. If you're not doing a lot of damage, the skill is useless, right? Or if it's not creating any type of movement for the character, like, all right, I'm untargetable. Because that's the other thing. If you every skill doesn't have to do DPS. Some skills can do, you know, make you untargetable or give you an advantage some way. It's not doing any of that. I think one of them does bleed, right?
Yeah.
And
Which
that's about it. With bleed is a bad thing. Yep.
Useless.
So.
And I think I think that goes into a lot of the conversation that I keep having about Doctor Strange that I keep putting out to people. Doctor Strange is not meant to be a DPS character. I don't care what world you look at, he's not a DPS character. He's a control type character. And the way they have the skills implemented for him, he's a control type character. But unfortunately, you're not rewarded for playing a control type character in this game. It's just really weird. Like even your next two skills that you bring up specifically goes to that point where we talk about Tranquil Guardian and Glare of Confusion, and we go one's you know, like you said, it needs to be able to restore your guard. It'd be good, but it doesn't. You said like even for, you know, Glare of Confusion, the way it's deployed on Doctor Strange is very different than the way we see like MODOK deploy his confusion, and it just doesn't work. A lot of Doctor Strange skills seem very contingent upon characters remaining stuck in place while we have no ability to stick a character in place, which is very odd for a character that has time freezing. But
what do you mean? We have snare.
Oh yeah, yeah, we got a guard breakthrough and it doesn't fucking work.
Yeah. And you know, by the wording, I think they think that's how he plays.
Yeah, no, I do. Like, I think they do too.
It's like, yo, all right, just stick them in place with the snare and then use these abilities. What are you talking about? Like that.
That's the way he should work, right? That's essentially the way he should work. He should be using his entirety.
I would love if they had like a test server and I could see if that worked on the test server. Like if I snare and use ring a ragdoll, let's see like how often I win rated. But that's not a thing. That's not a thing in that game.
It's not. It really isn't. Now, one of the skills that you mentioned inside here that I really I've actually become more of a fan of because of you specifically was the astral projection, astral walk, and soul predator skills. Like I've actually worked soul predator into my rotation, especially now that I just basically gave up on PvP and was like, you know, the can't remember the skill from the Crimson Bands that increases your defense pierce, but I gave up on it and I started using soul predator. I think I'm using soul predator a lot more inside here.
That's the one for stamina.
Yeah, the one for stamina. Yeah, because I don't need stamina. So it was crazy because I don't really need stamina anymore. My stamina's at like 176% now, and I'm still not noticing any change inside there. My freaking cooldown is at like 74.8 or something like that. So I don't even need that anymore, and I'm still not noticing any greater ability to run through Strange's skills there. Like how me and you talked about it at one point was like, yeah, I can get one or two rotations out before I need to dip out. Come back and then go back in if I'm able to get a full 2 rotations in. So let's jump into those because I liked your notes that you had here, especially for those two skills. Let's jump into Astral Walk and Soul Predator.
Active fan. So you say your cooldown's at 70 and your stamina's at 70?
My cooldown is at like 74.8, I think it is. And my stamina recovery is at 174 or something like that.
And you still having problems?
Still not really seeing like anything like great in terms of like him rotating through skills. I still have to go through like maybe I can get one rotation off of skills. Like, you know, I can hit like if I kept it low and was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna run like Astral Walk, roll from Astral Walk directly into Seven Rings of Ragador, come back to Astral Walk, and then roll into like Tal Mandala's and what's the other skill? Vishanti Assault. Then I'm pretty good. I can run that probably about 2 times before I'm like, yo, I gotta step out, dip out, and then I'm good. But if I'm inside PvP and I have to cast down Defense Pierce, roll into, you know, Seven Rings of Ragador, or, you know, move, nah, I'm probably getting like maybe one skill, like one rotation off before I'm like, okay, let me start hitting the dodge.
Yeah, got it. Okay, all right. So with this, my notes on this one was, it's interesting because this, I was playing a lot of Dimension Duels. I still do sometimes. So this is like, you know, Doctor Strange has set amount of skills. You can only do certain things. So with Iron Man and his cheesy guided missiles, which the damage lands before the missiles actually do, which is super annoying to me. So what was happening before, and it seems like it's not happening anymore, is my Astral Walk, I would open up because a lot of Iron Man open up with guided missiles. So I would open up doing that to avoid the damage. But now it's kind of like I get hit with the damage sometimes. I don't know what changed. I don't know what changed. I guess the missiles are even more broken, I guess now. But at times now, some Iron Man open up with Splin Blade. So, you know, this is what I wrote on the notes is that, you know, they open up with Splin Blade. They have 3 swipes of the Splin Blade. I have 1 dive. I dive, and then I notice that they're doing Splin Blade. I have to now use another dodge to get away from their second blade, and then I could just move out of the way. Because after my dive, I'm stationary for a second, so their second swipe of their blade is coming right for me. I have to dodge in order to get away from the damage. So I use. I'm sorry, I'm just reading. All right, so I don't think this is the complete notes. So I think one of I added to this was if he has a second dive or the animation was a little bit longer, or if he could. I think the final thing I said was if he could open up a portal and 3 portals and dive through each one 3 times, kind of like the Spin Blade.
Yeah, that would actually be pretty cool.
Yeah, he should be able to dive in and out of the 3 portals and make the animation a little bit longer. Because it's funny that this animation is the shortest one, and this is the one that is basically our defensive skill, our one defensive skill.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. So I'm not really interested in talking about Illusionist and Avenging Illusion because I like you said, Asadi, I really feel like this is just like a dead dud skill, 100% overall, and I don't see any. You know, I don't see any way that skill is going to ever be changed. Those skills are going to ever be changed into Astral Walk. But I want to go into talking about this lesson of wisdom. Mostly because
can I go back to the illusion? Because one of the things I put on it is that it is dead compared to Astral Walk. But I suggested that they split them up. Like Astral, it shouldn't be either or. It'd be cool if I could use my Astral Walk, Soul Predator with the illusion magic, right? So they have other dead skills where it's just like these are useless. Move the illusion magic ones over there so I can use my clones with my dive. Those are 2 defensive skills where I can, you know, I could make a build around that.
Yeah, and see, that's the problem with a lot of Doctor Strange's skills, unfortunately, is that when you look at his skill trees or like we playing Lost Ark now and stuff like that. You go to tripod effects and stuff like that. Is a lot of his skills boil down to that, where it's like you have skills in trees that would be good paired with other skills, except for the fact that I have to only be able to choose S. So like me and you were just talking about this earlier, right? The avenging illusion, where you would be able to summon one of those illusions around you, so that way you weren't targetable while you were doing those, would be great as a setup to using something like Gate of Edge. But I'm not going to use that over having something like Astral Walk or Soul Predator available to me.
And then the illusions, I suggested that illusions also follow you. Also, I mean, those illusions, they like basically like shooting basics at people.
Yeah, they're not doing anything.
I mean, yeah, I just thought of this off the fly. I was like, they should probably do snare,
That's essentially what he uses his illusions for, because his illusions he summons his illusions usually as a way for him to set up his spells in order to snare or capture other targets. That's the whole point of him. Like every single time you see him, that's what he's supposed to be doing. Whether you're looking at the comic books or the MCU, when he went against Thanos inside the MCU, he summoned his illusions so that way Thanos didn't know where the actual Crimson Bands of Sidorak was coming from, and then he was able to cast those abilities. They just missed the point on those. I really feel like they did. But I'm really interested in Lesson of Wisdom, mostly because I feel like this is another dead skill because of the way they played this skill out for other characters. Like, for instance, even for our characters, once we hit a max cap on utilizing, getting your max cap to cooldown, or, using the illusion magic class skills where you be like, I can reduce the cooldown rates on all my skills. What point do you feel like there's really in the Lesson of Wisdom being there and reducing the cooldown, especially when it has such a long cooldown itself?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I said. I was saying this is kind of useless. If I have a 40-second cooldown and it reduces my cooldowns for 10 seconds, that means that's 30 seconds where I don't have this skill is dead to me. Yeah. The skill is doing nothing for me. It's taking up a slot for no reason. So it's stupid. A skill that reduces my cooldown shouldn't have a long cooldown in and of itself. It's defeating why it's there. Yeah, that's just that. And then it doesn't work the way every other cooldown reduction type of thing works in the game. Every other cooldown reduction thing is like use your skills and then pop this to reduce your skills. This one is use it and then use your skills. Huh? Like, why is this the one skill out of everything in the game that works different?
Yep, exactly. There's a lot of his skills. So we get down to Vishanti Assault. We see Tau of Mandalas here. We know these are bread and butter. Like, if you're not running Vishanti Assault and Tau of Mandalas and your Doctor Strange builds, something's not right. But then we talk about Bladed Defense and Elder's Sword. More interested in hearing your points or perspective on Elder's Sword and Bladed Defense, just because I think we both know that Vishanti Assault is great. Tau of Mandalas is great. It's just they just have really slow ass cast time, so people are able to dodge out of those skills really easily. But what are your thoughts on specifically like Elder's Sword and the Bladed Defense?
Elder's Sword just doesn't do enough damage. I mean, it's funny because I like the animation on it, and it's
nice. It is nice.
It's fun. I'm laughing because this is the one skill that they sped up the animation with. And it's like, all right, this is cool, but it does like 300% damage. It literally, and again, everything that they balance patched, quote unquote, I tested it in the day after, and I was like, I using this. I was laughing. I was like, yo, it's cool. It looks scary. I could tell. I don't know if you play enough PvP, but you can tell when people are like, whoa, what the fuck is that? Mm-hmm. So I threw it out there, and people aren't used to seeing Doctor Strange do that, and they're like, whoa, what's that? But when it hits, and they're like, oh, it didn't do anything. then they're like,
a lot of Doctor Strange skills.
Then they're like, oh, okay, now I know I can just eat that and go around. So that's that. And then the Bladed Defense. Okay, so they gave it a nice little cool thing, and I was excited for it until Yags came and crushed my dream. He said, yeah, they give it an extra, was it 15% damage decrease when deploying it,
Yep.
but they're buffing everybody's damage on their iframe, so that's just
So it made it even more
canceling out the
worthless.
15% that they did. So I was like, oh yeah, but nonetheless, I tested it out. And you know what I tested it out and realized it's garbage. You know why it's garbage? Because I have to be. It's a purely defensive skill.
Yep.
I have to be in attack range in order to deploy it. So when the dimension, and I test everything in dimension duel. When dimension duel match starts, I press the skill to launch it so I can get my 15% damage decrease. My Doctor Strange has to walk within striking distance to deploy it.
And your Doctor Strange don't move that fast in the first goddamn place, so
Now I'm getting punched in the face before it's deployed.
yeah.
And now I'm at a disadvantage because he hit me first because I'm trying to deploy my defensive skill in range of his attack.
Yeah.
It's just like, who thought of this?
Yeah. So then we talk
that's
about
my particular skills.
yeah, so then we talk about Doctor Strange's ultimate skill. And it's really interesting because like how you mentioned magic earlier, is essentially we see what Doctor Strange's ultimate should have been or could have been in terms of talking about deployment and in terms talking about terms of usefulness. Everything about magic is centered around building up that ultimate gauge so that way you can use her ultimate because that's where she's doing her most amount of damage, her most amount of effects. And it seems like they missed the point with that with Doctor Strange. Like I've 100% felt since they nerfed it back in the first month of gaming, it has never felt like it should have felt. Where it was even when I use this skill in PvE, I can I'm level 120, 215 squad power. I cast my ultimate inside training grounds in Sakaar or even in lower end areas, and this doesn't even kill mobs. It doesn't even kill mobs, and like you said in there, it doesn't pick up or slam supervillains, so it doesn't even do like maybe a quarter of a bar of damage to supervillains. And half the time when I use it in Omega War, I'm like, it is not affecting anybody. Like nobody's actually getting picked up by this skill, and it's literally cancelable by other players if you get hit. So I don't know if you have any more greater thoughts to add on to that one, but his ultimate skill is ultimately worthless.
Yeah, I mean, it's ultimately worthless not to appeal to other people, but I kind of, I shared this with the community, and some people are really like, yo, his ultimate, like, really pitchfork about his ultimate. Everybody has a complaint about their ultimate in
Yeah.
the game. Ultimate skills are just trash. If you're not a Black Widow or Captain America, which they nerfed, I mean, Captain Marvel, sorry, Captain Marvel, which they nerfed. Your ultimate is just trash. They actually recently just nerfed Magic's ultimate too. So I just chalked it up to ultimates are in this game is garbage. It's an extra skill which looks cool in PVE, but you're not going to use it in PvP at all.
No.
So I didn't spend a lot of time on this. It's just like if they do something with it, great. But as you can see of all of the stuff that I wrote with all of the other skills, I'd rather much, and these are skills you use way more than your ultimate. I'd rather much them spend time working on the actual skills than the ultimate, because that's going to affect my overall gameplay more than the ultimate. It's trash.
I don't disagree with
Understand
you
it.
on that one. His ultimate. The hard part for me about Doctor Strange is a lot of Doctor Strange's potential centers around him being a crowd control character. How much they can change animations in terms of speeding up the casting times or the animation effects. How much they can make even those core skills feel potentially better by adding stats, because obviously the main problem with Doctor Strange is adding stats onto his individual skills, meaning increasing the amount of damage, isn't going to help the character because the skills are still too slow. So you have to figure out a way to increase the animation times or to decrease the animation times so that way the skills are actually landing, because it doesn't make a difference if the skills don't land because people are able to telegraph that skill from a mile away. It doesn't really make a difference if you increase those damage numbers. The thing I liked about his ultimate skill was the fact that when it was originally implemented, like you said, the Crimson Bands of Sidorak and his ultimate skill were key components to the character's success inside the game. I would at least like to see that ultimate brought back to those levels. Same thing for Crimson Bands of Sidorak. You know.
That's true because it did do a lot of damage in the range. They also nerfed the range on it, so
Yeah.
that is true. There's no crowds to control. That's the one thing that I would push back on. There's literally no PVE content, so I'm not interested in them making the character more PvE centric because PvE in this game is boring and non-existent until they put something in here that's interesting and challenging PvE wise. I don't care if they make my character more PvE viable because there's literally nothing entertaining about PvE.
No, I don't disagree with you, and it doesn't seem like they are on that track to give us more PvE content where our characters will shine in a PvE environment. Like, I hate to say that. I compare this game a lot of times, especially because people want to compare this game to Marvel's Avengers. People wanted to compare this game to Lost Ark. People want to compare it to Marvel Future Fight. And the absolute truth about this game is that it is 100% PvP based, and almost every aspect of the game is PvP based. There's very little for us to gnaw on in PvE content. And the worst part about it is, with Training Grounds, when they did implement PvE content, it was a pay to win scenario, which just made it even more unappealing to me. So
That's not even challenging. It's like you go in there and hit auto and then come back to your phone when the time is.
right,
I mean,
exactly. I'm spending
welcome to
3 hours
PvE.
of auto time on my phone, auto play time on my phone.
I welcome the PvE. It's not like I don't want PvE. I welcome the PvE, but right now they don't have anything.
Yeah,
Don't gear my character to something that you don't have in the game.
right.
When the game is, when you have that in the game, then I want my character to be geared towards that. But
Yeah.
don't put me at a disadvantage PvP wise when this is the only fun thing to do in the game. Don't
Right.
disadvantage. That's my passion right now. Is like I don't want to be at a disadvantage competing in the most competitive part of your game.
Right, which is Dark Zone, Alliance Omega War, and Omega War. If you're not aware as a player, that is what it is. It's Dark Zone, Alliance Omega War, and Omega War. That's just simply the truth of the matter. Your best rewards on a day-to-day basis inside the game are coming from Dark Zone and being able to clear the supervillains from there to get crystals. So it's the best one inside there. Your Dark Zone badges, your Omega War badges. That's what all of that stuff is coming from those areas. So yeah, for you guys out there in the community, that's essentially what we mean by that. Even when you look at what they put out on the roadmap, you're going to be looking at squad battle PvP. So Dimension Duels, Omega War, these are the places where the in-game content really exists at. Not in raids, not inside blitzes. That's where it really is. The blitz badges matter very little when you can actually access Dark Zone, Omega War, Alliance Omega War, and Dimension Duels. That's just the truth of the matter. But let's jump into specializations and potentials, because this was an interesting thing that I didn't really. I've looked at. I've made commentary back on it before about the specializations, but I never realized how shitty his specializations were, especially on that right hand side, like about 5 o'clock on the skill tree. But you've got a lot here about the specializations, and I'll let you just go ahead and speak on these, because
Yeah.
I enjoyed your points about these.
Right. So I think this is the one that I had become more and more passionate about. I think someone else pointed out specializations to me. At first I was just all skills, but then when I started like reading it, I was like, yeah, these things don't make sense. So this first one, time manipulation, resonance, this one is the guard break. Like the 30% guard damage, right? And the reason why I said it should apply to what's this mystic art skills instead of illusion magic skills, because a lot of illusion magic skills, one, doesn't do a lot of damage, or two, aren't damage dealing skills like confusion and summoning illusions. Those do no damage. So why would I want to put guard damage on those type of skills? Guard damage should be applied to damage dealing skills, so you have both effects. Then once you start doing that and applying that, then we can start talking about if snare works or not. because then we could see, hey, we're actually able to guard break people now. So now we can see if snare works, but we won't know that until they actually implement that. So that was the first one. The second one, time manipulation, reverberation, time manipulation, force field. These two are redundant. They both reduce your cooldown. One reduces your cooldown when using any illusion magic skill. So if I using three mystic art skills and then I use illusion magic skills, it will knock down the cooldown time. I think a lot of characters have that. That's tied to illusion magic. Then the other one is if you use 3 illusion magic skills, which you don't want to use 3 illusion magic skills, it reduces your cooldown by like 25%, I think, at the top level, something like that. I don't have the numbers exactly. But they're both tied to illusion magic skills. He has 3 classes. Only Mystic Art is really viable. And these two are redundant because they're overlapping with illusion magic skills. The one that has used 3 to get a flat rate percentage decrease in cooldowns, that one should probably go to his skill tree, Mystic Arts, that has the most usable skills. So that was my point there. This one came from Dark Magic will destroy, remove, or reduce increased skill. Okay, this one is just this is the one I was talking about earlier. So his cooldowns are a problem only because of Will of Destroyer. One of the specs that is like a must-have. It increases your attack by 25%, but it also increases cooldown by 15%. If you take this skill off, if you take that off, your cooldowns naturally just off of your potential and who else you get cooldown from, or off of your spec tree is really really high, for that because Doctor Strange has a lot of cooldowns just naturally. When you take this spec off, you don't have an issue with cooldowns anymore. Well, if they would either reduce it to, because I'm trying to be fair, I just told him he reduce it down to 8%, or just take it away completely because he's at a disadvantage with this. This makes this cooldown king not so much cooldown. So that's that there. I think that's pretty universal. A lot of Doctor Strange users know that that's an issue. That's the reason why they have to spec so heavily into cooldown, when other characters don't. This one came from Rome 1. The Touch of Ashanti specializations are just garbage.
Terrible, absolutely terrible skills.
Yeah. Yeah. So hold on, I'm just reading it really quick.
Yeah, because there's not, like you basically said, we know as Doctor Strange players, there are not 3 useful Touch of Ashanti skills. You are not going to go down his skill tree list and find 3 actual Touch of Ashanti skills that you can actually put into play and make them work. If you were going to tell me that you can find those, I will call you a liar every day of the week. There's not 3 skills in there.
The only Touch of Ashanti skill that's useful is the dive. His Astral Walk and Soul Predator. That's the only one that is used universally. Everything else is like, why are you doing this? This is a disadvantage. This one came from 1-1. He said, and I'm not sure if they will or won't. There's something that wasn't asked, and I'm not sure if I remember to input it. The 3-set bonus, our defense and HP, which also again that's 11% of either defensive pairs or crit rate that we're losing for having HP and defense in that slot instead. Because every other character has defensive pairs and crit rate. This makes us have to chase those stats even more.
And I really like that. I really like that you put this one in here because this is something I've argued forever. Is that I don't understand why they put him as the only character that has 3 set bonus effects as HP or defense. Useless stats, while every other character that has that as a stat, like Captain America, they convert, but we don't convert at all to make to useful relative skills at all. Like Doctor Strange's HP, you can put that shit as high as you want to. It's not going to make a difference. Somebody like Iron Man comes with a spin blade, you're going to get killed with a one-shot hit. Somebody like freaking Black Widow comes and hits you with her freaking rifle shot, you're going to get a one-shot hit. That's just the truth of the matter. So like being able to convert those into a useful stat is really good. And you actually gave them a reason or a place to put these at, which is something I really couldn't figure out in terms of putting into words. So I really like that you gave that in there and gave in solution to it. Replace white magic, win the truth, because nobody cares about it, and white magic ether, and give us that as the conversion. I really like that idea.
That was Rome One's idea. I won't take credit for that. He gave me that, and I just copied and pasted it on it. That was a really good one, though. I must admit. It will make use of our specialization because we don't have many options. Like I'm playing with magic, and it's just like I'm like playing around. Like, can I use this spec? Can I use that spec? There's options there.
Mm-hmm.
Doctor Strange doesn't have those options. It's just like my specs are my specs to the point where people are using bad skills to increase max damage rate, which we all know no other character is even bothering to look at. But Doctor Strange characters are actually using a skill to keep max damage rate up so that our skills deploy stronger. Yeah, this is what we're reduced to as a community.
I agree with you on that one. And then lastly, I guess we move over into potential. Potential has been an interesting one, mostly because I think that the tree overall is set up in a way that you would potentially see the character being utilized, being ultimate gauge recovery, cooldown. If I'm using skills on cooldown, I'm leading into my ultimate gauge use, similar to the way magic is. But then they did that nerf, and I think for Doctor Strange players, we saw the nerf even more because that's the way that you wanted the character to play, with cooldown decrease moving into ultimate gauge. But then you removed one of our cooldown decrease special potentials and replaced it. But you basically have this on here, like remove the spell enhancement, status effect accuracy. We don't have any status effect skills, so why didn't they just remove those? But I'll let you get ahead and give your piece on that one.
Yeah, we talked beforehand. Status effect accuracy and that stat effect resistance is stats that no one's gonna ever like spec into. I don't even think that they should be stats in the game. Either the debuff lands or it doesn't, and it should just land. It shouldn't be a percentage chance that it lands. It's stupid. Because this is a damage dealing game. You didn't make it. Whatever. Status effect is it shouldn't be in our potential. We don't have as many skills as other characters does. So remove it. Give us back our cooldown because that's what we need is cooldown. Our ultimate gauge. Don't have high hopes for them to do anything with our ultimate. Again, I just think ultimates in this game are just garbage. So remove that and give us relevant stats. What they took our cooldown down decrease out for, at least it wasn't a stat that was not usable.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't smart to take out one usable skill for our next when we had useless skills, useless stats in there. So I basically just told them to remove all of the useless ones: ultimate gauge recovery, status effect, and I'm not. I mean, even guard gauge. Like this is the thing. Like everything that you read about Doctor Strange from them makes it seem as though they want him to be magic. What magic is? Magic, if you fought magic and these coming, even without transmutation, which they should implement sooner rather than later if they ever want to make a new character and have people actually invest in that character, because this magic is putting a sour taste in the community. No one's ever going to, buy into a new character when you geek them behind not being able to transmutate. But that's going on another tangent. Magic is a guard breaking character. Anybody that has fought her will get guard break just as fast by her as Captain America. And everything that they word Doctor Strange as seems as though they want him to follow that suit. but he has no natural guard damage. His skills are mostly all low guard damage, other than Astral Walk and what's that? Book of Ashanti. Those are his most usable high guard damage skills, and just two out of how many skills that will guard damage you. So they can even do that in the potential and like, hey, we're gonna give you more guard damage. Find ways to give more guard damage, but just make his potential more useful. They did a decent job giving us accuracy. I have 4 stacks of accuracy on my pants because we didn't have no accuracy. For the longest time, I would get slaughtered by Spider-Man. Spider-Man would kill me slowly because just couldn't hit them. So, once I got accuracy, I went crazy with it. But now they gave us accuracy, so that's greater than potential. They just need to take out what's useless and
I don't disagree. So I haven't sent you this, Bizzy, but as we wrap up here, I want to show the audience basically what I submitted for my Doctor Strange skills inside of here, and or my suggested changes that I submitted basically. And most of the players that have been following my channel will already know these. I keep a running list of skills and things like that, mostly between Captain America, Spider-Man, and Magic and Doctor Strange, because those are the characters that I'm really interested in. But to just run off the top list of these a couple of times, skill animations, I think me and you both agree, super armor, guard hits, and iframes, those are something that are needed in the character. If you don't have a way to add in a increase in animation, decreasing animations, we need more iframes or guard hits inside of the game. That's just what it is. The stamina cost overall inside the skill animations, I think that we can agree that a large majority of the skills that are useful, they just have too high of a stamina cost. Defensive stats, like we just talked about, those things need to be reduced or changed. Defense pierce, crit rate, or a crit rate could be some of those. I actually like the way Bizzy and Rome 1 have laid that in there. Put those inside our specializations. It'd be really cool to be able to max and Mitch play those things. The skill changes, like you said, overall, I think Bizzy just has it hands down. Really good ideas in terms of what it needs to be in terms of skill changes. We've talked about some of these things before in the past, like gateway launch. It needs to have an iframe on it. It needs to have increased guard damage. It needs to be a sped up animation. Even when we look at some of the other skills like Vishanti's Sacred Sword, we need more area and more damage on it. Soul Sunderer, this was a really good skill when it first came out, but it needs increased damage. Why is this not here? It needs to be there. The biggest point about a lot of things is, like Bizzy said, even in this end part, we have status effect accuracy inside this game, but why? We are not Storm. We're not Star-Lord. We don't have status effect accuracy skills inside of here. We have to look at, like, overall, like me and Bizzy were just talking about, Touch of Ashanti is one of those skill trees that they devoted a quarter of our specializations to. And here's a list of all the skills by breakdowns. I've showed you guys this before, and of those skills, you heard Bizzy talk about bladed defense and trying to make use of that one, and it doesn't hold. Lesson of Wisdom is one of the other skills, doesn't hold. And then we talk about Soul Enhance, whereas defense pierce increasing, doesn't hold. And then the only skills that you have useful out of the Touch of Ashanti class skill is Astral Walk or Soul Predator. Those are the only 2 skills, but I can only use one of those at a time. I can't use both of them at a time. So it's really, really weird. But I think we really need to look at these things in terms of overall. It's not like, people haven't been yelling these same things from the mountaintop. I know Bizzy has been on people's streams before. He's been on stream with me before, and we've talked about these things. It's just like they seemingly are not paying attention. I think, matter of fact, Bizzy, one of the videos me and Bizzy did together, Bizzy, didn't you post it inside the Marvel's Avengers Discord? I could have sworn you did, or somebody else did. It might have been King that did it. But it goes to that point.
I just wanted to say to your audience, I told you this before we got on. The reason why I wanted to do this is everyone sees that I got the 1,000 cores. I have the best ideas apparently. I will rage quit if none of these things. I wanted to publicly tell the entire community this is what I told them that they said I had the best ideas for. Now, if they don't implement these things, I'm rage quitting. because they're dumb at this point. How are you gonna reward me and say, yeah, you got the best ideas, but you implement none of them? So
I don't even disagree with you.
they're up against the wall. They better start implementing these things. And I'm not sure what other people. I hope that people that also won this will share what they told them. That way, we all know. Like it's on blast. It's basically putting them on blast, putting them up against the wall. This is what everybody that you said won told you to do. What are you going to do to fix this character?
Yeah, and obviously it seems like the greatest. That they're literally leaning into where they know they need to improve Doctor Strange. They know they need to improve Captain America. I think the hope for me, especially looking at the survey when we did it, was that they don't nerf some other character in order to make these characters adjustments feel like they are nerfs instead of buffs instead of what they potentially are. But
Yeah.
Like Bizzy said, I think we're in that environment right now with the game where there's a lot of players pissed off at the nerfs that happen and pissed off at the potential of the game that is in front of us that's not being realized or actualized by the developers. And we're at that point where it's, I think, a lot of players like Bizzy. I hate to say this, but there's going to be a lot of players like Bizzy. I think Bizzy, you're like a play to play kind of character, a cheap to play, as Halfsin likes to call him, or you're not a whale, but you're not a free to play character. And I think you're going to lose a lot of players like Bizzy, like, who are not going to stick by a game where you're just seeing our investment and our time get railroaded. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Bizzy.
Yeah, I think some people could call me a whale. But I mean, even still, it's discouraging because I spent quite a bit on Magic and I can't transmute. And it's frustrating because it's like, did I even want to switch? I like Doctor Strange. I just wish he was better. I was at a point where it was like, all right, I could see the end. I could see the light at the end of the tunnel where I was going to get all the major stats maxed out. But when I go up against the likes of certain Spider-Man or Captain Marvels, and even still to this day, it's like, I don't feel like Doctor Strange can match up with these characters.
Not even.
Yeah, at their best versus Doctor Strange's best, it's a no contest.
Yeah. Spider-Man at his worst is going to kill a Doctor Strange at his best.
we have 2.5 million Yags on our squad. So anyone that want to say on the contrary that Doctor Strange could stack up, he recently just left the alliance for a little bit, and would come in and fight us or whatever, sometimes in Dark Zone, and ask him how it go. I mean, he would kill Halfsin, but I'm sure Halfsin had an easier time killing him. So, if that doesn't say much, then what?
It doesn't. Well, Bizzy, I appreciate you stopping by, man. Like always, you always have some really good insights on it. Like I said, I picked up a few ideas from you when you told me Soul Predator and Astral Walk were better uses than Soul Enhance. And you continue to be one of the Doctor Strange players inside the game, ranked in the top 10 on Omega Flight server, which is the whale server. Obviously, the majority of people that's there are whales. So I respect your opinions a lot. I'm really happy to see that your opinions were at least taken by them. And like you said, hopefully they are implemented in some way, shape, or form and fashion. I think we're looking at March before they said that they were probably looking at the hero balance patch. Let's hope that's true. If you got any last things that you want to say, Bizzy?
No, good. Just wanted to share it with everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Bizzy. All right, guys. Until next time. Peace.